Hi guys, tonight, we travel back into one of the quietest places history has ever known. Not a place without sound, but a place where each sound came almost exactly when people expected it. Long before the first light reached the edge of the eastern sky, before birds crossed above the river, before the warmth of the desert slowly returned, ancient Egypt was already waiting for another familiar day. The air was cool for a little while. The earth still held the night's gentle breath. Far across the dark water of the Nile, small lamps glowed inside mud brick homes where families slept beneath woven mats and simple linen coverings. The flames were weak now. Some had almost disappeared into tiny pools of warm oil. Others flickered quietly as a breeze slipped through narrow doorways. Nothing hurried. Nothing surprised anyone. For thousands of years, mornings had arrived in almost the same way. If someone had awakened 100 years earlier, or 100 years later, the sounds outside the window would have felt wonderfully familiar. A donkey shifted its weight. Somewhere nearby, a goat quietly called into the darkness. A sleeping child turned over on a woven reed mat. The river continued its patient journey toward the northern sea, never asking for attention. Everything seemed to understand its place. And perhaps that was the greatest comfort of ancient Egypt. Life was not exciting. It was dependable. The same river returned. The same fields waited. The same bread baked. The same roads filled with footsteps. The same stars watched over another quiet night. For many people who lived here, tomorrow looked almost exactly like yesterday. Not because life lacked meaning, but because meaning often lived inside ordinary moments repeated again and again. Imagine opening your eyes before sunrise inside a small mud brick home. The walls are thick enough to keep some of yesterday's heat outside, though they cannot stop every grain of dust that the desert wind carries through tiny cracks. Your bed is simple. It is little more than woven reeds stretched across a wooden frame, or perhaps only layered mats resting upon the packed earth floor. You have slept beside your family. There are no separate bedrooms. Everyone shares the same quiet space. The smell of dry reeds mixes with faint traces of baked bread from yesterday. Clay jars rest against one wall. A woven basket hangs nearby. Copper tools have been carefully placed where they belong. Nothing inside this house is expensive. Nothing is unnecessary. Every object has earned its place through daily use. The house itself feels calm because every member of the family already knows where each item belongs. Outside, the sky begins changing very slowly. Not bright. Only softer. Dark blue slowly gives way to gray. The eastern horizon holds the smallest hint of pale gold. No clocks exist to announce the hour. No bells ring across the village. People simply know. Their bodies have learned the rhythm of countless mornings. Generations have awakened like this. Parents learned from grandparents. Children quietly learn without anyone needing to explain. The sun is not merely part of the day. It is the day. Its arrival decides nearly everything. Soon someone rises. Sandals touch the cool earth floor. Soft footsteps move across the room. A clay jar is lifted. Water is poured carefully into another container. The sound echoes gently inside the small house. Nobody speaks loudly. There is no reason to. The day has only just begun. Outside, other homes slowly awaken as well. Doors open one after another. A woman carries grain toward a grinding stone. An older man stretches tired muscles that have worked fields for decades. Children rub sleep from their eyes before helping with simple morning tasks. Nobody wonders what today will bring. They already know. Fields must be checked. Animals must be fed. Bread must be prepared. Water must be carried. Tools must be repaired. Fish must be caught. Accounts must be written. Stone must be shaped. The work changes from family to family. But the rhythm remains wonderfully familiar. This predictable rhythm shaped nearly every corner of Egyptian life. It shaped childhood. It shaped marriage. It shaped old age. Even festivals became meaningful because they appeared at expected moments within the steady flow of the year. The Nile itself encouraged this peaceful regularity. Unlike rivers that frightened people with sudden violence, the Nile followed a pattern that many Egyptians trusted deeply. Each year the water slowly rose. Each year it covered fields. Each year it left behind rich black soil. Each year farmers prepared themselves for another growing season. Of course, no river could ever be perfectly predictable. Some floods were higher. Some lower. Some years brought worry. Others brought abundance. Yet over centuries, the Nile behaved with enough consistency that entire communities organized their lives around its gentle schedule. Imagine standing beside the river just after sunrise. Mist floats quietly above the water. Fishing boats rest against the shore. The surface reflects pale golden light that grows warmer with every passing moment. A fisherman unties a rope without speaking much. His hands know every movement before his thoughts even arrive. He has performed this task hundreds of times. Perhaps thousands. The rope feels familiar. The wooden boat feels familiar. Even the smell of damp reeds feels familiar. Routine slowly becomes comfort. Nearby, another family begins grinding grain. Large stones scrape against one another with slow, steady movements. The sound repeats again and again. It is not unpleasant. It becomes part of the village itself. One family grinds grain. Another shapes clay. Someone sweeps dust away from the doorway. Someone repairs a fishing net. Someone carries baskets toward the market. Every movement joins countless others until the village itself seems to breathe with quiet purpose. The desert beyond the fields remains silent. Its endless sands remind everyone where life becomes difficult. Almost everything depends upon the narrow green ribbon beside the Nile. Without the river, these villages could not exist. Without the yearly flood, the fields would struggle beneath the relentless sun. And so every ordinary day quietly honors the river, even without words. Children notice these rhythms long before they understand them. A young boy follows his father into the fields. His sandals leave tiny prints in soft earth. He watches how seeds are scattered. He watches how tools are carried across one shoulder. He watches when people pause to drink water before returning to work. No formal lesson takes place. The lesson is simply life itself. Tomorrow he will watch again. The following week he will help. Years later he will teach another child using the same quiet example. Knowledge travels gently through repetition. It does not need loud instruction. Morning grows warmer. The cool air begins disappearing. Sunlight climbs the mud brick walls. Shadows shorten little by little. Workers understand that the pleasant hours will not last. Soon the heat will settle over the fields like a heavy blanket. So everyone continues steadily. No one wastes much movement. A farmer guides simple wooden tools through soft soil. Nearby another bends carefully to remove weeds. Each motion is slow enough to preserve strength. The work is demanding. Yet rushing only creates greater exhaustion later. Perhaps this is another reason life felt predictable. People learned long ago that patience often served them better than speed. The desert rewarded endurance far more often than urgency. As the village fully awakens, gentle voices drift through the streets. Neighbors greet one another without ceremony. They have known each other for years. Some since childhood. Their parents knew each other before them. Their grandparents likely stood upon these same dusty paths. Entire generations remained close to the places where they were born. The road beneath their feet has carried countless familiar footsteps. Its dust remembers everyone. The market slowly comes alive. Merchants arrange baskets of vegetables. Potters display fresh vessels still carrying the scent of baked clay. Bundles of onions lie beside fresh herbs. Fish caught before sunrise glisten in woven baskets. Fresh bread cools upon cloths. The smell spreads gently through the air. Warm grain. Smoke. Stone ovens. Simple food prepared exactly as it was yesterday. And likely exactly as it will be tomorrow. Nothing here is designed to surprise. Everything exists because people need it every single day. This dependable simplicity becomes one of the quiet foundations of Egyptian life. Even the village dogs know where to wait. They linger near places where scraps sometimes appear. Children laugh softly while carrying small bundles. Older people rest briefly in shaded corners before continuing their chores. Life flows forward without sharp edges. There is work. Always work. But there is also an understanding that everyone shares this burden together. No one expects an easy life. Instead, they hope for a normal one. A normal flood. A normal harvest. A healthy family. Enough bread. Enough water. Enough sleep before another familiar sunrise. And in ancient Egypt, for countless ordinary people, that kind of ordinary life was not considered disappointing. It was something deeply precious. Because predictability meant food could be planned. Homes could be maintained. Children could grow. Communities could remain together. The great monuments that later generations would admire began with lives like these, quiet, repetitive, and grounded in routines that changed only little from season to season. As the morning continues to unfold beneath the growing warmth of the Egyptian sun, the village settles into its familiar rhythm, and every steady footstep along the dusty paths becomes another gentle reminder that here, beside the patient Nile, life was measured not by sudden change, but by the comforting return of another ordinary day. The sun climbs a little higher. Its warmth settles softly across the fields, the rooftops, and the winding paths between the homes. The coolness of dawn has almost disappeared now. Shadows grow shorter with every passing moment, quietly reminding everyone that the hottest hours are still ahead. The village no longer feels sleepy. It feels settled. Every person seems to have found the place where they belong, as though each day has gently guided them into the same familiar position. The sounds around them are not loud. They simply blend together into the peaceful rhythm of ordinary life. A wooden wheel turns. A stone grinder scrapes. Someone calls softly to a donkey. Water pours into a clay jar. Sandals brush against packed earth. The Nile continues its endless journey beside them all. For many people living in ancient Egypt, this collection of small sounds was the music of life. There was comfort in hearing them every morning. Silence would have felt strange. Sudden change would have been unsettling. Familiar sounds meant that everything was unfolding as it should. In one corner of the village, a woman kneels beside a flat grinding stone. She pours a handful of grain into the shallow hollow before moving the heavy upper stone back and forth with steady hands. The motion is slow. It asks for strength more than speed. Tiny pieces of grain become fine flour little by little. She does not rush. There is no reason to hurry. She has repeated this movement since she was very young. Her mother moved the same stone. Her grandmother almost certainly did the same. The rhythm belongs not only to her but to generations before her. Fine dust from the grain settles lightly across her hands and arms. It gathers in the folds of her linen clothing. The smell is warm and earthy, carrying the quiet promise of fresh bread later in the day. Nearby, another family prepares their morning meal. A small fire burns inside a clay oven. The flames are gentle now, fed with dry reeds, bits of wood, and anything else that burns slowly enough to cook without wasting precious fuel. Flat rounds of dough are pressed by practiced hands. Nothing is measured. Nothing is written down. Experience guides every movement. The dough is placed against the warm inner walls of the oven, where it begins to bake. Soon the rich smell of bread drifts into the narrow street outside. It mixes with smoke, dust, and the sweet scent of damp river reeds carried by the morning breeze. These simple smells greet everyone who passes. Children notice them without thinking. Old people smile quietly because they have known these scents for nearly their entire lives. A familiar smell can become as comforting as a familiar face. Across the village, men and women leave for different kinds of work. Some walk toward fields where wheat and barley sway gently in the morning air. Others head toward workshops where wood, copper, leather, and stone wait to be shaped by patient hands. Each person carries simple tools. A wooden hoe. A woven basket. A copper chisel. A fishing net folded carefully over one shoulder. The tools are worn smooth from years of use. Handles have been polished by countless hands. Edges have been sharpened again and again. Nothing is thrown away if it can still serve another season. The people of ancient Egypt understood the value of caring for the things they owned. Replacing an object was often far more difficult than repairing it. So every evening, tools were cleaned. Every broken handle was mended if possible. Every basket received new reeds before it completely fell apart. This quiet attention to ordinary objects made daily life more dependable. When morning came, everyone knew where their tools would be. Nothing needed to be searched for. Nothing needed to be invented. Routine itself became a kind of protection. Farther down the road, several farmers walked together without speaking very much. The dusty path beneath their sandals has been traveled so often that their feet almost know the way without thought. On one side of the road stand low mud brick walls. On the other, green fields stretch toward the shining river. Beyond those fields, the desert begins. The line between fertile earth and endless sand appears almost sudden. Green gives way to gold. Life gives way to silence. The contrast has always been there. Every child grows up seeing it. The fertile land beside the Nile feels precious because the desert is never far away. Perhaps this is another reason why routine mattered so deeply. When nature offers only a narrow strip of life, people learn not to waste what they have. The fields themselves are full of quiet activity. Some workers bend low to inspect young plants. Others guide simple irrigation channels that carry river water across the soil. Children help gather loose bundles. Older workers pause only long enough to drink before returning to their tasks. The work is repetitive. It asks the body to perform the same movements hour after hour. Lift. Carry. Walk. Bend. Straighten. Repeat. Many modern people might imagine such repetition becoming unbearable. Yet for those who lived here, repetition created certainty. Every completed task carried them one step closer to the next harvest. Every harvest meant food. Every successful season meant another year for the family. Predictability was deeply connected to survival. As the sun rises higher, heat begins settling over everything. The air grows heavier. The breeze becomes softer. Even birds seem quieter now. Workers wipe sweat from their foreheads using the edge of a linen cloth. Dust clings to damp skin. The smell of warm earth grows stronger. No one complains loudly. The heat is expected. It arrives almost every day. People learn to work with it rather than against it. They move steadily. They pause beneath shade whenever they can. They drink carefully from clay jars filled earlier in the morning while the air was still cool. Water is never taken for granted. Every drop matters. The Nile provides generously, yet carrying water from river to home requires effort. Clay jars are heavy. The walk is long. Children often begin helping with this task while still very young. They learn balance before strength. They watch older siblings carry water with calm, careful steps. Soon they can do the same. No formal lesson is needed. The village itself becomes their teacher. Near the riverbank, fishermen prepare for another quiet morning on the water. Their boats are simple. Made from wood and reeds, they sit low upon the calm surface of the Nile. One man untangles a fishing net while another checks the knots with patient fingers. The net has been repaired many times. Each small repair tells the story of another day's work. Nothing about the process feels hurried. The river rewards patience. Casting a net too quickly often creates tangled rope. Moving too suddenly may frighten the fish. So every motion becomes smooth, measured, gentle. The boat drifts away from shore almost silently. Small ripples spread behind it before disappearing once again into the wide river. Looking across the water, it is easy to understand why so many Egyptians believed the Nile carried its own quiet wisdom. It never rushed toward the sea. It simply continued. Day after day. Year after year. Century after century. Its calm presence shaped not only the land but the people who depended upon it. Even those who never became fishermen often measured their own lives by the river's steady rhythm. Children were born beside it. Families gathered near it. Farmers relied upon it. Travelers followed it. The river became more than water. It became the quiet heartbeat of the land. Back inside the village, another kind of work continues. A scribe sits cross-legged beneath the shade of a simple roof. Before him lies a smooth sheet of papyrus. Beside it rests a small palette holding black and red ink. Thin reed brushes wait nearby. His hands move slowly across the surface. Every mark is careful. Every line must be neat. He records grain deliveries, tax collections, work assignments, storehouse inventories. The work requires patience more than speed. Writing itself is quiet. There is no hammer striking stone. No heavy basket to lift. Yet the scribe also lives within routine. Each morning brings another list. Another record. Another careful account. His work helps keep the larger rhythm of Egypt flowing without confusion. Others may never know his name. Still, his steady hands quietly support thousands of ordinary lives. Nearby, craftsmen begin shaping limestone blocks. The sound of copper chisels tapping against stone echoes gently through the workshop. Tap. Pause. Tap. Brush away dust. Tap again. The rhythm becomes almost hypnotic. Stone dust hangs in shafts of sunlight entering through the doorway. Tiny white particles settle across hair, shoulders, and tools. No grand monument appears in a single day. Every block demands careful attention. Every smooth surface begins with hundreds of patient strikes. The builders understand this well. Great achievements are simply many ordinary days placed together. No one expects to finish everything today. Tomorrow will come, and the work will continue. This patient understanding fills nearly every corner of Egyptian society. People think in seasons rather than hours. They think in generations rather than moments. A father plants trees that his grandchildren may one day enjoy. Builders shape stones that future workers will place. Parents teach children knowing those lessons will continue long after they themselves have grown old. The pace of life encourages long thinking. There is little need for hurry when tomorrow resembles today. As midday slowly approaches, the heat grows stronger still. The bright light reflects from pale stone walls and dusty roads. The air shimmers gently above the fields. Animals seek shade wherever they can find it. People naturally slow their movements. Not from laziness. From wisdom. The desert teaches that strength must be preserved. Those who waste energy early often suffer later. So the entire village seems to breathe more slowly beneath the powerful sun. Voices become quieter. Footsteps become measured. Even conversations wait until cooler hours return. Inside the homes, thick mud brick walls offer welcome relief. The rooms remain dim. The earth floor feels pleasantly cool beneath bare feet. Clay jars help keep drinking water fresh. Someone quietly mends a torn linen garment. Another repairs a woven basket. A grandmother tells a gentle story to a child resting beside her. The story is old. Perhaps older than anyone remembers. Yet hearing it again brings comfort rather than boredom. Like the river. Like the harvest. Like the sunrise. Some things become precious precisely because they return again and again. Outside, the bright afternoon stretches peacefully across the valley. The fields continue their quiet work. The river continues its endless journey. The workshops continue their careful labor. And beneath the great Egyptian sun, another perfectly ordinary day unfolds almost exactly as countless days have unfolded before, each familiar moment gently weaving itself into the long, steady rhythm of a civilization that found quiet strength in knowing what tomorrow would almost certainly bring. By the time the sun reaches its highest place in the sky, the entire valley seems to grow quieter. The light is bright beyond words, pouring over the land without pause. It settles on every rooftop, every field, every stone, and every narrow path that winds between the homes. The warm air shimmers above the earth, making distant trees appear to sway even when they stand perfectly still. This is the hour when the desert reminds everyone of its presence. The fertile land beside the Nile is generous, but it exists beside endless sand. The heat belongs to both. It reaches into every village, every workshop, and every field, asking each person to move with patience instead of haste. No one argues with the sun. They simply learn to live beside it. A farmer pauses beneath the shade of a date palm. His hands are rough from many years of lifting baskets, guiding wooden tools through the earth, and tying bundles of grain. Fine lines of dust rest inside every crease of his skin. He drinks slowly from a clay cup. The water is cool enough to feel refreshing, though not cold. He closes his eyes for a brief moment. Not to sleep. Only to let his body rest before another stretch of work. Nearby, several oxen stand quietly together. Their tails move lazily through the warm air, brushing away insects. They have worked beside people for many seasons. Like the farmers themselves, they understand the rhythm of the day. Morning brings labor. Midday brings slower movement. Evening brings rest. Nothing about this surprises them. A small breeze arrives from the direction of the river. It carries the scent of wet reeds mixed with warm earth. The breeze is gentle enough that some people barely notice it, yet everyone welcomes it. Even the smallest movement of air feels like a quiet gift beneath the afternoon sun. Children continue helping their families. Their work is lighter than that of the adults, but it is still meaningful. One child gathers fallen reeds near the edge of an irrigation canal. Another carries a small basket of vegetables toward home. Two sisters carefully watch over a group of ducks that wander beside the water. Now and then they laugh softly when one bird decides to wander farther than the others. Their laughter is gentle. It rises into the warm air and disappears almost as quickly as it came. Children in ancient Egypt learned responsibility little by little. There was rarely a single day when someone announced that childhood had ended. Instead, every season added another small task, another skill, another habit. By the time they reached adulthood, work already felt familiar because it had become part of everyday life long before. Not every child would become a farmer. Some would learn the careful work of craftsmen. Others might help in family workshops. A few would have the rare opportunity to study writing. Yet no matter which path they followed, one lesson remained almost the same for everyone. Life moved in cycles. The seasons returned. The river rose. The crops grew. The stars crossed the night sky. Families worked together. Years passed quietly. This understanding settled deep within people's hearts. It gave shape to their expectations. In another part of the village, a potter sits before a simple wheel. His hands are covered in cool gray clay. A lump of earth rests at the center of the turning surface. Slowly, almost without effort, his fingers begin shaping it. The clay rises. Then widens. Then narrows again. Every movement is calm. The vessel grows little by little beneath his steady hands. There is something peaceful about watching clay become useful. The potter does not force the material. He listens to it. Too much pressure would cause the walls to collapse. Too little would leave them thick and uneven. Balance is found through experience. Experience comes through repetition. Hundreds of bowls. Hundreds of jars. Hundreds of cups. Each one teaches the hands something new, even if the lesson is so small that it can hardly be noticed. Around him stand rows of finished vessels. Some are waiting to dry. Others have already been fired. They will soon carry water, grain, oil, or beer into homes throughout the village. Most of these pots will never be admired as beautiful works of art. That was never their purpose. Their purpose is simply to serve, to hold, to protect, to make ordinary life a little easier. The people who use them may never think about the quiet care that shaped them. Yet every meal depends upon countless unnoticed acts like these. Across the village, another craftsman carefully repairs a wooden stool. The stool belongs to a neighbor. Its legs have loosened after many years of use. Instead of throwing it away, the owner has brought it here. The carpenter examines every joint. He replaces one worn peg. He smooths another piece of wood with careful strokes. Soon the stool feels sturdy once again. Nothing has become new. It has simply been given more time. This quiet habit of repairing rather than replacing can be seen almost everywhere. Linen garments are patched. Fishing nets are tied again. Sandals receive new straps. Basket handles are rewoven. Clay jars are sealed where tiny cracks appear. Each repair tells a small story. Someone cared enough to continue using what already existed. Resources were valuable. Waste served no one. Even the smallest object deserved another chance if it could still be useful. As the afternoon slowly unfolds, life in the village settles into an almost dreamlike rhythm. The same roads welcome the same travelers. The same trees cast their familiar shadows. The same dogs stretch lazily beneath walls warmed by the sun. A pair of elderly neighbors sit together outside one home. Neither speaks for several moments. They simply watch people passing by. Perhaps they remember when they themselves hurried along these roads carrying heavy baskets. Now younger hands perform those tasks. Time changes every person. Yet the village itself seems almost unchanged. The same homes. The same fields. The same river. The same sky. There is comfort in recognizing familiar places year after year. One old man quietly notices a young boy carrying water from the Nile. The child's careful steps remind him of his own childhood. Perhaps he once walked this very path holding a similar jar. Perhaps his father once reminded him not to spill the precious water before reaching home. The memory arrives gently. There is no sadness in it. Only warmth. Life continues. One generation slowly becomes another. The routines remain. Near the edge of the settlement, several women gather beside a washing place. They kneel near the water, gently cleaning linen garments. The fabric moves beneath their hands again and again. Water ripples softly around them. Occasionally they exchange quiet conversation. No one rushes to fill every moment with words. Silence is welcome too. They know one another well enough that conversation may pause without becoming uncomfortable. Sometimes they simply listen. The sound of water touching stone. The distant call of birds. The rustling reeds. A breeze crossing the river. Even silence becomes part of daily companionship. The Nile itself seems untroubled by time. Its steady flow continues exactly as it did yesterday. The water reflects drifting clouds that move so slowly they are almost impossible to notice. A fisherman guides his small boat toward the shore. His baskets contain enough fish for today's needs. Not every day brings the same catch. Some mornings are more generous. Others less so. Yet the act of returning feels wonderfully familiar. He pulls the boat onto the riverbank. He hangs the damp net where it can dry. Tomorrow morning he will untangle it once again. His life is measured not by dramatic adventures but by countless peaceful returns. In the shade of a sycamore tree, a young apprentice watches an older stonemason at work. The master says very little. Instead, he demonstrates. A careful strike. A pause. Another strike. The apprentice watches every movement. He notices how the older man's shoulders remain relaxed. How the chisel is held. How loose stone dust is brushed away before the next cut. Learning happens through observation more than explanation. Day after day the apprentice copies these movements. Months become years. Eventually his own hands begin moving with the same quiet confidence. Knowledge passes like the flowing Nile. Not suddenly, but steadily. As afternoon slowly begins leaning toward evening, the harsh brightness softens almost imperceptibly. The shadows become slightly longer. Birds return toward the reeds. Workers begin thinking about home. Not because work is finished forever. Only because today's share has been completed. Tomorrow will ask for more. It always does. Yet tomorrow also brings another sunrise. Another loaf of bread. Another walk beside the river. Another chance to greet familiar neighbors. There is something deeply comforting in knowing this. Many people today imagine history as a series of great events. Kings rise. Kingdoms fall. Monuments appear. Battles are fought. But for nearly everyone living in ancient Egypt, history felt much quieter than that. History was waking before dawn. History was carrying water. History was kneading bread. History was repairing sandals. History was guiding children. History was resting tired feet after long hours beneath the sun. Most people would never meet a pharaoh. Many would never travel far beyond nearby villages. Their world was smaller. Yet within that smaller world existed countless ordinary moments filled with quiet purpose. As the light continues to mellow, smoke begins rising from cooking fires once more. Families return home one by one. Children run ahead before slowing near their doorways. Clay ovens are warmed again. Fresh bread begins to bake. The familiar smell drifts gently through the evening air, blending with roasting onions, herbs, and the faint sweetness of dates. The village feels different now. Not busier. Simply softer. The hardest labor has passed. Voices become calmer. Steps become slower. People greet one another as they return along dusty roads glowing beneath the golden light of the lowering sun. And as another ordinary day gently approaches its evening, no one wonders whether tomorrow will be completely different. Instead, they quietly prepare to welcome another sunrise that will feel comfortingly familiar, carrying with it the same river, the same warm breeze, the same patient work, and the same peaceful rhythm that has guided life along the Nile for generations beyond counting. The afternoon slowly gives way to evening. The change is so gentle that it is almost impossible to notice from one moment to the next. The bright white light of midday begins to soften into warm shades of gold. Long shadows stretch across the dusty paths, reaching farther with each passing breath of time. The heat does not disappear all at once. Instead, it loosens its grip little by little. People feel it before they truly see it. A breeze becomes easier to welcome. The air no longer presses so heavily against tired shoulders. Workers straighten their backs and look toward the western horizon, where the sun is beginning its quiet descent. This is one of the calmest hours of the day. The busiest work has been completed. There are still tasks to finish, but they no longer feel hurried. The village itself seems to exhale. Along the edge of the fields, farmers gather their tools. Wooden hoes are brushed clean before being carried home. Baskets are emptied and stacked carefully. Coils of rope are rolled neatly and placed over strong shoulders. Nothing is left carelessly behind. Every tool will be needed again tomorrow. A young man walks beside his father along the familiar path leading home. Neither speaks for several moments. There is no need. Their footsteps keep the conversation. Soft sand gives way to firmer earth. Small stones shift beneath worn sandals. Tiny clouds of dust rise with each step before settling quietly back onto the road. The father notices the young man's slower pace. The day's work has left his muscles tired. He remembers feeling exactly the same many years ago. Without saying much, he shortens his own stride. The two continue walking together at the same comfortable rhythm. There is kindness in small adjustments like these. They happen quietly, almost unnoticed. Yet they are remembered for years. Farther away, women return from the river carrying clay jars balanced carefully upon their heads. Their movements appear graceful, not because they are trying to impress anyone, but because years of practice have taught their bodies perfect balance. Each step is steady. Each turn is gentle. Water moves softly inside the jars but never spills. Children walking beside them sometimes try to copy their posture, standing taller than usual for a few playful moments before laughing at themselves. One little girl carries a much smaller jar. It is hardly heavy at all. Still, she treats it with great importance. She watches the older women closely, learning without anyone giving formal instruction. One day she too will carry larger jars along these same paths. The lesson begins long before that day arrives. Near the village entrance, several donkeys slowly return from nearby fields. Bundles of reeds rest across their backs. Their ears flick gently at insects while their hooves tap softly against packed earth. They know the road as well as the people do. The familiar route asks for almost no guidance. Even the animals have become part of the rhythm that shapes daily life. The scent of cooking begins spreading through the settlement. Smoke rises from low rooftops in thin gray ribbons. Inside one home, onions are gently cooking over a small fire. In another, lentils simmer inside a clay pot. Elsewhere, flatbread rests against the warm walls of an oven, slowly turning golden. The smell reaches the narrow streets. It mixes with warm dust, river air, and the faint sweetness of drying reeds stored beside homes. Every evening carries these familiar scents. They drift from one doorway to another until the entire village seems wrapped in the comforting promise of supper. Inside a modest home, an elderly woman prepares grain while her granddaughter watches. The girl's hands are still small. Sometimes she presses too firmly. Sometimes not firmly enough. The older woman smiles softly and gently guides her hands into the right position. No lecture follows. Only another quiet demonstration. Again. And again. Learning in ancient Egypt often happened through patient repetition. Children watched. Then they copied. Then they practiced. Mistakes were expected. Improvement came slowly, almost unnoticed, until one day the task felt completely natural. Outside, groups of neighbors pause along the road before entering their homes. A few exchange vegetables gathered during the day. Someone offers fresh herbs. Another shares several fish caught that morning. These small exchanges strengthen the village without anyone speaking of generosity. Helping one another has become another familiar habit. No written agreement is needed. Everyone understands that another day may come when they themselves will need a little help. As the sun lowers farther, the color of the Nile begins to change. The bright silver of afternoon slowly becomes deep gold. Gentle ripples catch the evening light and scatter it across the water like tiny pieces of polished copper. Fishing boats glide quietly toward shore. Their reflections stretch across the calm surface before breaking apart with each passing ripple. Birds fly low above the reeds. Some settle for the night. Others continue searching patiently for one last meal before darkness arrives. The sounds of the day become softer. Workshops begin closing. Stonemasons lay down their chisels. Carpenters gather wood shavings into small piles. Potters cover unfinished clay to protect it from drying too quickly before morning. Every craft pauses. Not because it is complete forever. Simply because another day has reached its natural ending. Tomorrow will welcome the work once more. There is comfort in leaving a task unfinished when you know you can return to it. Inside the scribe's workspace, rolls of papyrus are carefully stored. Ink palettes are cleaned. Reed brushes are washed and placed where they will be easy to find at sunrise. Even writing follows its own gentle routine. Every object has a place. Every evening prepares quietly for the following morning. A young apprentice carefully watches his teacher complete these simple tasks. At first they seem unimportant. Cleaning a brush. Folding papyrus. Covering ink. But slowly he begins to understand. Order at the end of one day creates peace at the beginning of the next. Routine is not only about work. It is also about making tomorrow a little easier. The village streets fill with families returning home. Children who spent the afternoon helping now have a few quiet moments to play before supper. They chase one another between mud brick walls. Some draw simple shapes in the dust using small sticks. Others gather smooth stones beside the road and invent gentle games whose rules have been passed from older brothers and sisters. Their laughter rises briefly before fading into the warm evening air. Even these moments follow familiar patterns. Parents know where to find them. Neighbors smile as they pass. Nothing feels uncertain. As darkness slowly approaches, lamps begin appearing one by one inside homes. Small flames dance above pools of oil. Their light is soft and golden. It reaches only a short distance, leaving corners of each room resting peacefully in shadow. The glow reflects against clay walls, making every home feel warm despite its simplicity. A family gathers for the evening meal. There is fresh bread still warm from the oven. A bowl of lentils. Some onions. Perhaps a little fish caught from the river. Maybe dates for sweetness if the season has been generous. The meal is plain. Yet after a long day of labor, it feels deeply satisfying. Conversation remains gentle. Someone asks about the fields. Another speaks quietly about repairing a fence tomorrow. An older relative shares a memory from many years before. Children listen while eating. Sometimes they ask simple questions. Sometimes they simply enjoy hearing familiar voices filling the room. Outside, stars begin appearing one after another above the desert. Without city lights, the night sky stretches endlessly across the valley. The first stars arrive quietly. Then another. Then many more. People know these stars well. They have guided boats. Marked seasons. Welcomed travelers home. Children learn their positions long before they fully understand their names. Looking upward becomes another ordinary part of life. The heavens above seem almost as dependable as the Nile below. In another home, a grandfather sits just outside the doorway while the evening breeze gently cools the earth. A small boy settles beside him. Neither speaks immediately. They simply watch the sky grow darker. The older man's breathing is slow. The child copies him without realizing it. After a while, the grandfather begins telling a quiet story. Not one filled with heroes or battles. Instead, it is about his own father. About learning to plant grain. About carrying water. About waiting patiently for the flood each year. The story moves gently from one memory to another. The boy listens carefully. He has heard parts of it before. Still, hearing it again brings comfort. Some stories are not repeated because people forget them. They are repeated because they help people remember who they are. As the village settles beneath the growing darkness, the sounds continue to soften. A donkey shifts quietly in its shelter. A dog curls into the dust near a familiar doorway. The last cooking fires begin fading into glowing embers. The breeze carries the scent of warm earth that has slowly released the day's heat. Some families remain awake a little longer. Others have already stretched out upon woven mats. Tomorrow will begin before sunrise once again. Rest is precious. Bodies that work beneath the Egyptian sun understand the value of sleep. There is no reason to remain awake longer than necessary. The coming day already waits patiently beyond the horizon. Inside the homes, children grow sleepy while listening to the quiet voices of their parents. Some fall asleep before the conversation ends. Their breathing becomes slow and even. Their small hands relax against woven blankets. The flickering lamp continues burning softly nearby. For these children, tomorrow will feel wonderfully familiar. They will wake to the same gentle sounds. The same bread baking. The same river flowing. The same dusty roads leading toward fields and workshops. And in that quiet certainty, as another peaceful evening settles over the fertile banks of the Nile, life continues exactly as it has for countless ordinary families, steady, comforting, and beautifully predictable, one calm day gently giving way to another beneath the endless stars of ancient Egypt. Night settles fully across the valley. The last glow of the sun has disappeared beyond the western desert, leaving behind a sky filled with countless quiet stars. The warmth of the day still lingers inside the mud brick walls, but outside, the air has become gentle once more. The breeze that moves along the Nile feels cool against tired skin, carrying with it the scent of fresh water, damp reeds, and distant fields resting beneath the darkness. The village has grown still. Not silent. Simply peaceful. A small lamp burns inside one home. Another glows across the narrow street. Farther away, a few more tiny lights shimmer like quiet stars resting upon the earth. Most families have finished their evening meal. The clay bowls have been rinsed with precious water and set aside. Bread baskets are covered with woven cloth. The cooking fire has been gently pushed together so that only warm embers remain. Tomorrow morning those embers may help light another fire, saving both time and fuel. Even this small habit has been practiced for generations. Nothing useful is wasted. Inside one modest home, a mother quietly folds a linen garment that has been washed and dried during the day. Its fabric is simple. The edges show careful repairs made over many months. A small patch near one shoulder blends almost perfectly with the original cloth. Only someone looking closely would notice it. The garment has lived through many seasons. It will likely serve through many more. Nearby, her husband checks the handle of a wooden hoe. His fingers move slowly over the smooth wood, searching for tiny cracks. He tightens a leather binding. He rubs away loose dirt. Then he leans the tool carefully against the wall beside the doorway. There it will wait until dawn. He never wonders where it will be in the morning. Routine creates trust. The tool will remain exactly where he leaves it. The same is true for the water jars, the grain baskets, the sandals resting near the sleeping mats. Everything has its place. Order makes tomorrow gentler. A young boy lies awake for a little while longer. The day's work has left his arms pleasantly tired. His eyelids grow heavy, yet he listens carefully to the sounds outside. Somewhere nearby, a cricket sings its steady song. A donkey shifts quietly in its shelter. The breeze brushes against the reeds along the riverbank. Occasionally, someone walks home a little later than the others, their sandals making soft sounds upon the packed earth before fading into the distance. These are familiar nighttime sounds. The boy has heard them every evening for as long as he can remember. They tell him everything is well. Nothing unusual has happened. The village is resting. Soon his breathing becomes slow. Sleep arrives naturally. Across ancient Egypt, thousands of children drift into dreams beneath similar roofs, wrapped in the same quiet certainty that tomorrow will begin much like today. Outside the homes, the stars appear brighter than ever. Without smoke from great cities or bright lamps to dim their light, the heavens stretch endlessly above the valley. The people of Egypt know these stars well. Night after night they return to their familiar places. Certain groups rise together. Others slowly disappear below the horizon before dawn. Farmers notice them. Boatmen notice them. Travelers notice them. The sky itself seems to follow a dependable rhythm. It offers another reminder that the world is held together by patterns far older than any single person. An elderly fisherman remains awake beside the Nile a little longer than most. His small boat has already been secured with a thick rope tied around a wooden post. Tomorrow, before sunrise, he will untie that same knot. Tonight, however, there is no work left to do. He sits quietly upon the riverbank. The water reflects the moon in long silver ripples. Now and then a fish disturbs the surface with a gentle splash. Circles spread outward before disappearing into darkness. The fisherman smiles faintly. He has watched this river for decades. He remembers seasons of abundant fish and seasons when the nets returned nearly empty. He remembers floods that reached farther across the fields and years when the water rose only modestly. Yet through every change, one truth remained. The Nile always continued. It flowed through his childhood, through his youth, through the years when he became a husband and father. Now it flows beside him as his hair has turned white. The river seems almost timeless. Its patient movement teaches a quiet lesson without using words. Keep moving. Do not hurry. Trust the seasons. Far from the riverbank, another family prepares for sleep. Their home is small. The walls are thick enough to soften the sounds from outside. The packed earth floor has been swept clean before nightfall. Reed mats are unrolled one beside another. Children settle into familiar places. Parents lie nearby. There is comfort in sleeping close together. No one feels alone. The youngest child reaches for her mother's hand before closing her eyes. The gesture is small, almost automatic. Her mother gently squeezes her fingers. No words are needed. Outside, a dog curls tightly beside the doorway, content to rest until morning. The night air carries the faint scent of date palms. Their leaves whisper softly whenever the breeze passes through them. Not far away, a cluster of frogs begins calling from the marshes along the river. Their voices rise and fall in slow waves. Some people barely notice the sound anymore. It has become part of every evening. Like the stars. Like the breeze. Like the quiet breathing of the Nile itself. In another part of the village, an elderly woman wakes briefly during the night. She sits up slowly, listening. Everything is calm. The lamps have burned low. The fire has almost faded to ash. She steps outside for a moment. Above her stretches the immense sky. The desert beyond the village is hidden beneath darkness, yet she knows it is there. She has lived beside it all her life. She takes a slow breath. The cool night air feels gentle after the heat of the day. For a few peaceful moments she simply stands beneath the stars. Perhaps she remembers being a little girl looking at this same sky. Perhaps she remembers holding her own mother's hand while walking home from the river. Those memories arrive quietly. They do not demand attention. They simply drift through her thoughts like boats upon calm water. Then she returns inside. Her family continues sleeping peacefully. The night embraces them once again. Hours pass. The moon slowly crosses the heavens. Shadows move almost unnoticed across the village. The earth itself seems to rest. Fields wait patiently for morning. Boats wait beside the shore. Tools wait against familiar walls. Bread dough rests beneath cloth, ready to become tomorrow's first meal. Even the animals seem to understand that this quiet pause belongs to everyone. There is something deeply comforting about a world that sleeps together. No carts rattle through the streets. No workshops echo with hammers. No voices call across the fields. Only the smallest sounds remain. A breeze. A ripple. A distant owl. Gentle breathing. The soft crackle of dying embers. These sounds become part of the ancient night. As midnight passes, the air grows cooler still. The mud brick homes slowly release the heat they gathered during the day. People pull simple linen coverings a little closer around their shoulders. Sleep grows deeper. Dreams come and go without anyone remembering them by sunrise. Time itself seems slower beneath the stars. There are no clocks marking each passing hour. Only the gradual movement of the heavens reminds anyone awake that the night is quietly unfolding. Eventually, almost too gently to notice, the darkness begins its long journey toward morning. Not yet with light. Only with the smallest hint that another familiar day is patiently waiting beyond the eastern horizon. The stars continue shining. The Nile continues flowing. The village continues resting. Everything remains exactly where it should be. And somewhere beyond the silent fields, hidden within the cool stillness before dawn, another ordinary day is already preparing to awaken, bringing with it the same peaceful rhythm, the same faithful routines, and the same comforting certainty that has guided the people of ancient Egypt through countless generations beside the ever-patient waters of the Nile. Long before the first light touches the eastern horizon, the world rests in its quietest hour. The stars still shine with calm confidence above the valley. The moon hangs low over the western desert, its pale light resting softly upon the Nile. The river seems almost motionless from a distance, though it never truly stops. Beneath its smooth surface, the water continues its patient journey, just as it has through countless nights before. The village remains asleep. From outside, every mud brick home appears peaceful. Their flat roofs and simple walls blend gently into the darkness, becoming part of the landscape itself. During the day they are places of movement, conversation, cooking, and work. Now they seem to breathe slowly with the families resting inside. The air is wonderfully cool. It carries away the memory of yesterday's heat and replaces it with a freshness that lasts only a short while. Before long, the sun will return, warming every wall and every field once again. But not yet. For now, ancient Egypt belongs to the night. A small owl glides silently above the fields. Its wings make almost no sound. It passes over irrigation canals, sleeping gardens, and narrow footpaths before disappearing into the darkness beyond a grove of date palms. Nothing beneath it stirs. The oxen remain lying together. The donkeys sleep standing quietly in their shelters. Goats gather close to one another, their breathing slow and even. Even the village dogs, so alert during daylight hours, have curled themselves into peaceful circles beside familiar doorways. Only the Nile continues moving. Its gentle current whispers against reeds growing along the banks. Every now and then a fish breaks the surface for the briefest moment before slipping quietly back beneath the water. The ripples widen, then disappear. The river keeps its secrets. Inside one home, an elderly man awakens before anyone else. His body has followed the same rhythm for so many years that it no longer needs to be reminded. He opens his eyes without hurry. There is no surprise in waking early. This has been his habit since he was a boy. He remains still for a few moments, listening. The quiet comforts him. He hears the slow breathing of his grandchildren sleeping nearby. The faint crackle of yesterday's embers. The distant murmur of water beyond the village. These sounds assure him that another ordinary morning is waiting. He sits carefully upon the edge of his woven mat. His knees are slower now than they were in youth. His back feels stiff after many decades of work in the fields. He stretches gently, giving his body time to remember the movements it has performed almost every day of his life. There is no frustration in these slow motions. Only acceptance. Growing older has become another familiar rhythm. He reaches for his sandals. The leather feels smooth beneath his fingers, softened by years of careful use. They have been repaired many times. New straps have replaced old ones. Small stitches hold together places where the leather once began to split. Yet they remain comfortable because they have shaped themselves to his feet over countless journeys between home, field, and river. Outside, he steps into the cool darkness. Above him, the stars seem close enough to touch. He pauses for a moment, lifting his eyes toward the heavens. There is no need to count the stars. He has spent a lifetime beneath them. Some appeared above him when he was a child walking beside his father. Now they watch over his grandchildren. The stars seem unchanged while generations quietly pass beneath them. The old man walks slowly toward the edge of the village. The packed earth beneath his sandals still holds the night's coolness. His footsteps create only the softest sound. He does not wish to wake anyone. Soon enough the village will awaken on its own. There is no reason to hurry that moment. The fields wait peacefully in the darkness. Their outlines are difficult to see, yet the old man knows every corner. He could almost walk these paths with his eyes closed. Here stands the sycamore tree where workers often rest at midday. There lies the irrigation channel that must be checked after each flood. Beyond it grows a patch of barley nearly ready for harvest. These places have become part of his memory as surely as the faces of his own family. A little farther away, another figure appears. It is his neighbor. The two men greet one another with quiet smiles. No lengthy conversation follows. Morning words are often few. Companionship needs no great speech. For several moments they simply stand together, looking toward the eastern horizon. The darkness there has begun to soften. Not with sunlight. Only with the faintest hint that night is slowly loosening its hold upon the land. They have watched this change thousands of times. Yet it never loses its quiet beauty. Little by little, the shapes of trees become clearer. The line of the river begins to separate itself from the surrounding land. Palm leaves emerge from shadow. Mud brick walls slowly reveal their familiar outlines. The village is returning to sight. Back inside the homes, other families begin to stir. A mother quietly rises from her mat, careful not to wake the youngest child sleeping beside her. She wraps a simple linen cloth around her shoulders and kneels beside the cooking place. The ashes from last night's fire still hold a small glow deep within them. She gently adds a few dry reeds. Then another small piece of wood. Soon a tiny flame appears. She shields it with her hands until it grows steady. There is satisfaction in not needing to begin again from nothing. Yesterday's fire helps welcome today's morning. Even the smallest ember carries tomorrow within it. Across the room, her oldest daughter awakens. Without being asked, she reaches for one of the clay jars. Together they prepare for another day that feels comfortingly familiar. The daughter pours grain into a woven basket. Her mother checks the water supply. Neither needs to explain what comes next. The sequence has become part of their lives. Each morning unfolds almost like a quiet song whose melody everyone already knows. Outside, the first birds begin calling from the reeds. Their voices are gentle at first. Then gradually more birds join them. The air fills with soft notes that seem to greet the coming sunrise. The Nile reflects a faint ribbon of silver where the eastern sky grows brighter. Nearby, fishermen untie their boats once again. The ropes slide easily through practiced hands. Each knot is familiar. Each movement is smooth. One fisherman pauses before stepping into his boat. He looks back toward the village. Thin streams of smoke are beginning to rise from several rooftops. Breakfast fires are waking. Families are preparing bread. Children will soon emerge into the streets. The sight brings him quiet reassurance. Everything is unfolding just as expected. He steps into the boat. The wood rocks gently beneath his feet. His companion hands him the folded net. Neither speaks much. There will be plenty of quiet hours upon the water. The oars dip into the river with barely a splash. The boat glides away from the shore, leaving only delicate ripples behind. As dawn grows brighter, more doors open throughout the village. Children stretch sleepily. Older people greet one another in soft voices. A donkey announces the morning with a patient call that echoes briefly across the fields. Goats begin searching for food. Chickens scratch at the earth near familiar doorways. The village is awakening, not with sudden energy, but with gentle certainty. No one wonders what kind of morning this will be. It will be much like yesterday. And that thought brings comfort rather than disappointment. Predictability allows every person to begin the day without fear of the unknown. The baker already knows how much grain will be needed. The potter knows which vessels remain unfinished. The carpenter remembers which stool still needs another wooden peg. The scribe knows which accounts must be recorded before midday. The farmer knows which field should be visited first while the air is still cool. Each person carries a quiet map of the day within their mind. There is peace in such certainty. As the first edge of the sun finally rises above the eastern horizon, warm golden light spreads slowly across the Nile. The river catches the light before anything else. Then the reeds begin to glow. The fields awaken in soft shades of green. The mud brick homes become warm with color. The village seems to emerge naturally from the earth itself, ready to begin another familiar day. And with the sunrise comes not the promise of something unexpected, but something far more precious to the ordinary people of ancient Egypt: the quiet assurance that life will once again unfold with the same gentle rhythm, the same patient work, the same shared meals, and the same enduring comfort that has carried their families from one peaceful dawn to the next for generations beyond memory. The first sunlight rests gently upon the valley. It does not arrive all at once. Instead, it slowly reaches across the land, touching the highest palm leaves before slipping down their trunks. It finds the rooftops of mud brick homes, the quiet pathways between them, and the calm surface of the Nile, where the morning light breaks into thousands of small golden reflections. The village welcomes another familiar beginning. The air is still cool enough to make every breath feel fresh. This is the part of the day that many workers appreciate most. Before the heat gathers its strength, there is a peaceful window when the body feels light and willing. People have learned to make good use of these early hours. Not because anyone commands them to. Because the land itself has quietly taught them. Inside one home, a family gathers around a simple morning meal. Fresh bread has been baked while the sky was still gray. The crust is warm, and when it is gently broken apart, a thin stream of steam escapes into the cool air. A small bowl of dates rests nearby. Another contains onions gathered only yesterday. There is also a clay jar filled with water drawn from the Nile before sunrise. The family eats slowly. No one rushes through the meal. Food is not only meant to quiet hunger. It prepares the body for many hours of steady work. The youngest child watches carefully as his father tears a piece of bread and offers it to his grandmother before serving himself. The gesture is small. No one speaks about it. Yet the child notices. One day, without thinking, he will do the same. Many customs in ancient Egypt are learned this way. They pass from one generation to another almost silently. Outside, the narrow streets begin filling with gentle movement. Neighbors greet one another with familiar smiles. A woman pauses outside her doorway to sweep away the fine layer of dust that settled during the night. She has done this nearly every morning for years. Tomorrow she will do it again. The desert is always patient. It leaves its mark everywhere. The people have become patient as well. They understand that some tasks are never truly finished. Dust returns. Clothing wears thin. Roofs need repair. Fields need tending. These are not interruptions to life. They are life. A pair of young brothers carry empty baskets toward the edge of the village. Their father walks several steps ahead. The boys try to match his long stride. Sometimes they succeed. Sometimes they hurry for a few moments before falling behind again. Their father notices but says nothing. There is no need. The boys will grow stronger with time. The road itself will teach them. Their sandals leave fresh footprints beside older ones. By midday, many of those prints will have disappeared beneath drifting dust. Tomorrow, new footprints will replace them. The paths remember movement rather than individuals. Not far away, the village potter opens the doorway to his workshop. The cool air inside still carries the earthy smell of damp clay. Rows of unfinished jars wait exactly where they were left the evening before. Nothing has changed during the night. The clay has rested quietly. Now the work may continue. He gently lifts one vessel into his hands. His fingers move across its surface. He checks its shape, its balance, its smoothness. He smiles with quiet satisfaction. There is no need to hurry. The clay rewards patience. Every careful touch makes the vessel a little stronger. Every day adds another small step. The same quiet lesson appears everywhere in ancient Egypt. Great things are built from countless ordinary moments. Along the riverbank, fishermen are already far from shore. Morning mist still lingers above the water. Their boats glide almost silently through the pale light. The surface of the Nile reflects both sky and reeds, making it difficult to see where one ends and the other begins. One fisherman carefully lowers his net into the water. He has learned exactly how the rope should feel in his hands. Too much tension tells him the net has caught against reeds. Too little tells him it has not opened properly. He does not need to see it. Years of repetition allow his hands to understand what his eyes cannot. This kind of knowledge cannot be hurried. It grows slowly. Season after season. Morning after morning. The river becomes a teacher. Not through words. Through quiet experience. Back in the fields, farmers begin their day's labor while the ground still holds a little of the night's coolness. Wooden tools press into dark soil left fertile by the Nile. Small birds follow behind, searching for insects stirred by each movement. The workers move with steady rhythm. No sudden motions. No wasted effort. Their breathing soon matches the pace of their work. Lift. Step. Turn. Press. Walk. Again. The pattern repeats so naturally that thought almost disappears. The body remembers. The hands remember. Even the feet seem to know where they should go next. Nearby, a young girl walks beside her mother through a small vegetable garden. She carries a woven basket that is almost too large for her. Each time her mother picks onions or herbs, the girl carefully places them inside. She tries to arrange everything neatly. Occasionally an onion rolls away. She quietly chases after it. Her mother smiles but says nothing. Learning requires room for little mistakes. The girl is not only gathering vegetables. She is learning patience. She is learning responsibility. She is learning that every meal begins long before anyone sits down to eat. Across the village, smoke rises gently into the brightening sky. Blacksmiths prepare their furnaces. The smell of charcoal begins mixing with warm air. Copper tools lie waiting upon wooden benches. Each one will be sharpened, repaired, or reshaped before returning to another worker. The blacksmith understands that his labor reaches far beyond his own workshop. A sharper blade makes farming easier. A stronger chisel helps shape stone. A repaired knife prepares food more safely. His careful work quietly supports hundreds of unseen tasks throughout the village. He rarely thinks of it in those terms. He simply begins another ordinary day. Near the center of the settlement, a scribe walks slowly toward a storage building. Under one arm he carries neatly rolled sheets of papyrus. In his other hand rests a small wooden writing pallet. His sandals make almost no sound upon the packed earth. He greets several neighbors as he passes. They greet him in return. Each knows the other's place within the life of the village. The farmer grows grain. The fisherman gathers food from the river. The potter shapes vessels. The scribe keeps careful records. None stands alone. Every person's work quietly supports another's. This understanding creates a feeling of balance. Not perfect balance. There are still difficult seasons. Illness still comes. Floods sometimes disappoint. Harvests are not always abundant. Yet daily life continues because people depend upon one another as naturally as they depend upon the Nile. An elderly woman sits beneath the shade of a sycamore tree, weaving fresh reeds into a basket. Her fingers move slowly but with remarkable confidence. She rarely looks directly at her hands. They already know the pattern. Over. Under. Fold. Pull. Again. Again. The basket gradually takes shape. Beside her sits her granddaughter, watching every movement with complete attention. After a while, the older woman hands the reeds to the child. The girl's first attempt is uneven. One reed bends too sharply. Another slips free. The grandmother gently adjusts them. No criticism. Only another quiet lesson. The child tries again. The rhythm continues. Knowledge in ancient Egypt often flowed as quietly as the Nile itself. It did not arrive in sudden waves. It passed gently from hand to hand, from parent to child, from master to apprentice, becoming part of daily life before anyone realized how much had been learned. As the morning grows older, the sunlight becomes warmer. Shadows begin shrinking across the fields. Workers pause now and then to drink from clay jars resting beneath trees. The water tastes slightly cool. A welcome comfort before the stronger heat arrives. Conversations remain gentle. People speak about crops. About repairing a roof before the next flood season. About a child who has grown taller since the last harvest. These are ordinary conversations. Yet they are the threads that quietly bind the community together. Far beyond the village, the desert stretches endlessly beneath the widening sky. Its golden sands remain still. From where the farmers stand, the desert seems both close and impossibly distant. It reminds them every day that the green valley beside the Nile is something precious. Without the river, these fields would fade into silence. Without the yearly flood, these homes would stand empty. Every loaf of bread, every clay jar, every woven basket, every family meal begins with the quiet generosity of the river. Perhaps that is why life here feels so wonderfully predictable. The Nile gives the people a dependable rhythm. The people shape their own lives around it. One follows the other. Season after season. Generation after generation. Morning after peaceful morning. And as the sun continues its gentle climb above the fertile valley, another ordinary day unfolds exactly as countless others have before it, each familiar task, each shared smile, and each patient movement adding another quiet thread to the long, unbroken fabric of life along the timeless banks of the Nile. The morning continues to unfold with gentle certainty. The coolness that welcomed the dawn is slowly fading now. Sunlight spreads farther across the valley, reaching every corner of the fields and every rooftop within the village. The air is still pleasant, but everyone knows it will not remain that way for long. No one needs to look at the sky to understand the passing of time. The warmth upon their skin tells them. The length of the shadows tells them. Even the birds seem to know. They fly a little lower now, searching among the reeds before the strongest heat settles over the land. Along the banks of the Nile, life continues with its familiar rhythm. Women kneel beside smooth stones, rinsing linen cloth in the cool water. Their hands move patiently through the flowing river, lifting the fabric, pressing it gently, then laying it across warm rocks to dry beneath the growing sunlight. The sound of moving water fills the quiet spaces between their conversations. Sometimes they speak. Sometimes they simply work together in peaceful silence. There is no discomfort in the silence. It has become another kind of friendship. One woman glances toward the river and notices a small boat drifting downstream. She recognizes it immediately. It belongs to a fisherman whose family has lived in the village for as long as anyone can remember. She has watched that same boat leave before sunrise countless times. She knows that before evening it will return once again. The certainty of its return brings a quiet sense of comfort. Many things in ancient Egypt followed this gentle pattern. They left. They returned. The river flowed away, yet it was always there. The seasons changed, yet they always came back. Children grew into adults, who then watched new children learn the same familiar paths. Nothing remained exactly the same forever. Yet the rhythm endured. Not far from the river, an elderly farmer slowly walks between rows of barley. He carries no heavy tools this morning. Instead, he simply observes. His eyes move carefully across the plants. He notices the color of the leaves, the firmness of the stalks, the moisture resting in the soil. Years of experience have taught him to read the land almost as another person might read a familiar face. A slight change in color tells him something. The way the wind moves through the grain tells him something else. He pauses now and then, resting one hand upon a wooden staff polished smooth by many years of use. His pace is unhurried. The fields have taught him that careful attention is often more valuable than hurried effort. Nearby, a younger farmer works with greater energy. His movements are quicker. His shoulders are strong. Now and then he glances toward the older man, quietly noticing the careful way he studies the crops. One day, many years from now, the younger farmer will likely walk just as slowly through these same fields. Age has a way of replacing speed with understanding. Neither is better. Each belongs to its own season of life. In another part of the village, the smell of freshly cut reeds fills the air. Several workers gather bundles that will later become baskets, sleeping mats, roof coverings, or simple fences. Nothing from the river is taken without purpose. The reeds serve many needs. When one bundle is tied, another quickly replaces it. The work is repetitive, yet not unpleasant. Hands become skilled through repetition. Minds grow calm through familiar motion. One worker hums quietly to himself. The tune is simple. Perhaps his father hummed the same melody while gathering reeds decades before. Perhaps his son will someday do the same without realizing where the tune first came from. Traditions often survive in the smallest ways. A melody. A gesture. A way of tying a knot. A recipe remembered without being written. These quiet habits become part of the life of the village, passed from one generation to the next almost as naturally as breathing. Near the workshops, the steady sounds of craftsmanship continue. A carpenter carefully shapes a wooden beam with slow, even strokes. Thin curls of wood fall gently to the floor. The sweet smell of fresh timber mixes with warm dust drifting through the open doorway. Across from him, a young apprentice gathers the wood shavings into neat piles. He watches every movement made by the older craftsman. Not only the work itself, also the patience behind it. The master never forces the blade. He allows the tool to do its work. Each stroke is calm. Each cut follows the grain of the wood rather than fighting against it. The apprentice begins to understand that skill is not only strength. It is careful attention repeated over many years. Outside, merchants slowly arrange goods beneath simple cloth coverings that provide a little shade from the growing sun. Baskets filled with onions rest beside jars of oil. Bundles of flax lie carefully tied together. Fresh fish glisten upon woven trays. Clay pots stand in orderly rows, each one slightly different from the next because every pair of hands leaves its own quiet signature upon the earth. People arrive without haste. They know the merchants. The merchants know them. Many exchanges begin with a warm greeting before anyone speaks of grain or vegetables. Trust has grown over many seasons. There is comfort in seeing familiar faces day after day. A young mother carries her little son through the market. He watches everything with wide, curious eyes. The colors of woven cloth. The smell of warm bread. The sound of a potter gently tapping a finished vessel to test its strength. The laughter of two old friends meeting beside a basket of dates. Everything feels new to him. Yet everyone around him has experienced these same sights countless times. One day, they too were children looking upon the market with fresh wonder. Now it has become simply another part of life. This is how ordinary places quietly become cherished memories. Not because they are extraordinary. Because they are always there. As the sun climbs higher, more workers seek moments of shade whenever possible. A sycamore tree becomes a welcome gathering place. Several laborers rest beneath its broad branches. One removes his sandals for a few minutes, rubbing tired feet before putting them back on. Another drinks carefully from a clay jar. A third leans against the trunk with eyes closed, simply listening to the breeze moving through the leaves. No one speaks very much. Words are not always necessary among people who have shared years of labor together. Their companionship has become comfortable enough to include silence. The tree itself has watched many generations rest beneath its branches. Children who once climbed its lower limbs have grown into parents. Parents have become grandparents. The tree remains, offering shade without asking anything in return. Beyond the fields, the desert glows beneath the strengthening sunlight. Its vastness seems endless. The sand carries no footprints for long. The wind quietly smooths away every trace. The fertile valley, by contrast, remembers every season. Fields are planted again. Canals are repaired. Homes are rebuilt upon the same ground. Life here depends not upon wandering but upon returning. Returning to the fields. Returning to the river. Returning to family. Returning to familiar work. Perhaps this is why the people of ancient Egypt found such deep comfort in routine. Every return was a quiet reassurance that life continued as it should. The Nile itself seems to understand this. Its waters flow steadily, never hurried, never still. Boats move upon its surface. Children play along its banks. Birds rise from the reeds in gentle waves before settling once more. The river accepts each day without complaint. It carries fishermen. It waters fields. It reflects the changing sky. Then it simply continues onward. As the morning slowly approaches its warmer hours, another ordinary chapter of village life quietly unfolds. Bread continues to bake inside clay ovens. Reeds continue to be woven into useful things. Stone continues to be shaped by patient hands. Children continue learning by watching the people they love. The Nile continues its endless journey toward the northern sea. And beneath the widening Egyptian sky, life remains beautifully predictable, not because nothing ever changes, but because each new day arrives wrapped in familiar rhythms that gently reassure every heart along the river that they are exactly where they belong. The morning gently leans toward midday. The sunlight grows brighter with every passing hour, and the golden softness of dawn slowly becomes the clear, steady light of late morning. The shadows that stretched across the village at sunrise have become shorter now, gathering close beneath trees, walls, and the feet of those moving quietly through the day. The warmth is no longer simply pleasant. It begins to ask something of everyone. People naturally slow their pace. They have learned over many generations that the land rewards patience far more often than hurry. Along the banks of the Nile, the water reflects the bright sky like polished glass. Here and there, small ripples spread where fish rise briefly beneath the surface. Dragonflies skim across the water, their delicate wings catching the sunlight before disappearing among the reeds. A fisherman guides his narrow boat toward a familiar bend in the river. He has chosen this place many times before. The current moves gently here. The reeds provide shelter for fish. He lowers his net with practiced hands. The rope slips smoothly through his fingers. Every movement is quiet. He has no need to think about each step. His body remembers. The rhythm of his work has become as natural as breathing. While he waits, he watches the river instead of the net. The Nile teaches patience. One cannot hurry the water. One cannot command the fish. The wisest choice is often to wait with calm attention. So he sits beneath the growing warmth of the sun, listening to the gentle sounds around him. The whisper of reeds. The distant call of water birds. The soft creak of the wooden boat as it rises and falls with tiny waves. These sounds have accompanied nearly every morning of his life. He would notice their absence more than their presence. Farther inland, farmers continue working among fields of wheat and barley. The air carries the sweet scent of growing grain mixed with the rich smell of fertile earth. Wooden tools move steadily through the soil. Hands brush away weeds. Bundles are tied with strips of woven flax. No one speaks loudly. Conversations rise and fall like the breeze itself. A question about tomorrow's work. A quiet remark about the condition of a nearby field. A gentle laugh shared between neighbors who have worked side by side for many seasons. Their friendships have been shaped not by grand adventures but by thousands of ordinary mornings spent beneath the same sun. A young farmer pauses to straighten his back. He wipes a line of sweat from his forehead using the edge of his linen garment. His father notices. Without speaking, the older man points toward the shade of a nearby sycamore. The younger man understands. Rest now. Continue later. There is wisdom in listening to the body before exhaustion arrives. The younger farmer walks toward the tree and sits upon the cool earth beneath its broad branches. The shade feels almost like another season. He drinks from a clay jar that has been wrapped in damp cloth to keep the water pleasantly cool. Each slow sip brings relief. He closes his eyes for a moment. Not to sleep. Only to enjoy the gentle breeze moving through the leaves above him. When he opens them again, he watches tiny patches of sunlight dancing across the ground. The leaves sway softly overhead. Nothing demands his attention. For a few peaceful moments, simply resting is enough. Nearby, an elderly woman gathers herbs growing beside a small garden. She knows each plant by its scent before she even looks at it. Her hands move carefully among the leaves, selecting only what her family will need. Some herbs will flavor the evening meal. Others may help soothe an aching stomach or comfort a cough when cooler nights return. This knowledge has been passed quietly through many generations. No scroll records every lesson. Most of it lives in memory. A mother teaches a daughter. A grandmother teaches a grandson. The plants become familiar companions throughout life. In another corner of the village, the potter's workshop grows warmer. The sun reaches the doorway now, filling the room with bright light. Rows of clay vessels stand patiently waiting. Some have dried enough to be carried toward the kiln. Others remain soft, protected beneath damp cloth. The potter lifts a newly finished jar. He turns it slowly in his hands. His fingertips search for tiny imperfections. A slight unevenness near the rim catches his attention. Without disappointment, he smooths it carefully. Good work rarely comes from rushing. The clay teaches the same lesson each day. Take your time. Let every movement have purpose. His apprentice watches from nearby. The young man notices how little force the master uses. Strength matters less than steady hands. The apprentice practices shaping a small bowl. Its sides wobble slightly. The rim leans a little too far in one direction. The older potter smiles gently. He remembers making the same mistakes many years ago. Instead of correcting the bowl himself, he simply demonstrates once more. The apprentice begins again. Learning moves forward one patient attempt at a time. Across the village, a scribe sits in the shade beside a storage house. Before him are baskets filled with grain collected from nearby farms. His task is not physically demanding, yet it requires careful attention. He dips a reed brush into dark ink. The brush glides smoothly across papyrus. Small symbols appear one after another. Each mark carries meaning. Each line helps the community keep track of its harvest. The scribe pauses occasionally, allowing the ink to dry before continuing. Even writing has its own quiet rhythm. Nothing is hurried. Mistakes are easier to avoid when the hand remains calm. From where he sits, he can hear the village continuing around him. Children laughing in the distance. The soft tapping of a carpenter shaping wood. The occasional call of a merchant greeting familiar customers. These sounds weave together into the gentle music of ordinary life. He has listened to them for many years. Without them, the day would feel strangely empty. As the sun climbs higher, cooking fires begin burning once more. Not for the evening meal, but for the simple food that sustains workers through the hottest hours. The smell of baking bread drifts through the narrow streets. Warm barley loaves emerge from clay ovens. Steam rises gently as they cool. Nearby, onions roast slowly over glowing coals. The rich aroma mixes with herbs and a faint trace of smoke. A young boy carries several fresh loaves toward the fields where his older brothers are working. The basket feels heavy at first. He shifts it from one arm to the other. The path is familiar. He has walked it many times. Along the way he greets neighbors who smile warmly as he passes. Everyone knows where he is going. Everyone understands why. Small acts of helping one another fill nearly every day. When he reaches the field, his brothers welcome him with grateful smiles. They sit together beneath the shade of a tree. Bread is shared. Water is passed from one pair of hands to another. No one eats quickly. The meal is simple, but after hours of steady work it feels deeply satisfying. For a little while, conversation replaces labor. Someone remembers a flood from many years before. Another speaks about repairing an irrigation channel after harvest. The youngest brother mostly listens. He enjoys hearing the older voices around him. Their stories are never dramatic. They are stories of weather, fields, neighbors, families. The ordinary events that quietly shape a lifetime. As the meal ends, everyone rises slowly. Hands brush crumbs from linen clothing. Clay cups are rinsed with care. The basket is folded once again. Soon each person returns to the task waiting for them. No one complains that the work continues. Work has always continued. The fields ask for patience. The river asks for patience. Life itself asks for patience. And so, beneath the widening Egyptian sky, another late morning passes with gentle certainty. The fishermen remain upon the river. The potter continues shaping clay. The scribe records another careful line. The farmer returns to the grain. The child carries another basket. The breeze still moves softly through the reeds. The Nile still glides toward the distant sea. And the people of ancient Egypt continue living within a rhythm so steady and familiar that each ordinary hour becomes another quiet thread woven into the peaceful fabric of a life that changes slowly, patiently, and almost beautifully without notice. The sun now stands high above the valley. Its light falls almost straight upon the earth, washing the fields, the river, and the village in a bright, steady glow. The coolness of morning has become only a memory. Warm air rises from the packed earth paths, and the stone walls of workshops begin storing the heat that they will slowly release again after sunset. This is the quiet heart of the day. The busiest work does not stop, but it changes. The land gently asks everyone to move with care. Those who have spent their lives beside the Nile understand this without needing to speak of it. A farmer does not fight the midday sun. A fisherman does not hurry against the current. A potter does not rush drying clay. Everything has its proper pace. Along a narrow irrigation canal, clear river water slips through carefully shaped banks of earth. The current is gentle. It carries life into the fields one quiet stream at a time. A middle-aged farmer kneels beside the canal, brushing away a small collection of reeds that has gathered against the opening. He works with his hands instead of a tool. The mud is cool beneath his fingers. As soon as the reeds are removed, the water begins flowing more freely. He watches it for a few moments. There is satisfaction in such a simple task. The water moves exactly where it is needed. Soon it will reach rows of growing vegetables farther down the field. He stands slowly, brushing damp earth from his knees. No one nearby notices what he has done. There is no applause for clearing a canal. Yet the vegetables will grow a little better because of it. Many important things in ancient Egypt happen this way. Quietly. Almost unseen. A little farther along the fields, two young sisters carry woven baskets filled with freshly gathered beans. They walk carefully along the narrow ridges separating one plot from another. The baskets sway gently with each step. One girl begins to walk a little faster. A few beans tumble onto the ground. She stops immediately. Without frustration, she kneels and gathers each one. Her older sister smiles. "There is no hurry," she says softly. The younger girl nods. She has heard those words before. Perhaps hundreds of times. In this place, patience is not simply encouraged. It becomes part of everyday life. The girls continue their journey together, their footsteps leaving faint marks in the soft earth that will disappear after the next watering. Near the village, the carpenter pauses beneath the shade outside his workshop. The smell of freshly cut wood lingers around him. Small curls of cedar and acacia rest upon the floor where they fell throughout the morning. He lifts a simple wooden chair he has been repairing. Its legs are steady now. He places it upon the ground and presses gently against each corner. No movement. No wobble. He smiles quietly. Another useful object has been given many more years of life. The chair belongs to an elderly neighbor. This evening she will sit upon it while preparing vegetables for supper. Tomorrow morning she may use it while mending linen clothing. The carpenter imagines none of these moments. He simply does careful work. Yet his hands become part of another family's ordinary life. Across the village, the marketplace grows calmer as the heat increases. Many shoppers have already returned home before the hottest hours arrived. The merchants remain beside their goods, sheltered beneath woven coverings stretched between wooden poles. A basket of figs rests beside jars of honey. Bundles of flax lean against a mud brick wall. Neatly stacked pottery catches the sunlight, its smooth surfaces glowing with warm shades of brown and red. A merchant pours himself a small cup of water. He drinks slowly. Then he wets a cloth and gently wipes away the fine dust that has settled upon several clay bowls. Dust never truly disappears. The desert sends it patiently across the valley every day. The people respond with equal patience. Sweep today. Sweep again tomorrow. Clean the bowls. Wash the cloth. Brush the sandals. Life continues through small acts repeated faithfully. A little boy sits beside his grandfather beneath the shade of a date palm. The older man is weaving a length of rope from flax fibers. His fingers twist and pull with slow confidence. The strands gradually become stronger together than they could ever be alone. The child watches with complete attention. After a while, the grandfather places the unfinished rope into the boy's hands. "Feel it," he says quietly. The boy runs his fingers along the rough fibers. They smell faintly of dried plants warmed by the sun. He tries twisting two strands together. They separate. He tries again. This time they remain together a little longer. His grandfather nods with gentle approval. Neither speaks for several moments. The lesson continues in silence. Nearby, a pair of oxen rest beneath a broad sycamore tree. Their breathing is slow. Flies drift lazily around them. Every now and then one animal flicks its tail, sending the insects away for a few moments before they quietly return. The tree casts a wide circle of cool shade upon the earth. Workers resting nearby lean comfortably against its trunk. One removes his woven hat and fans himself slowly. Another closes his eyes, listening to leaves rustling overhead. The breeze is light. Almost too gentle to notice. Yet even the smallest movement of air feels welcome. No one speaks loudly. Midday encourages quiet voices. The heat seems to soften conversation itself. At the river, the fishermen begin returning with the morning's catch. Their boats move steadily toward shore. The water sparkles brightly around them. As each boat reaches land, neighbors help pull it gently onto the riverbank. Fish are sorted into woven baskets. Some will be cooked today. Others may be salted for later use. Nothing is wasted. Every catch represents hours of patient work. One fisherman untangles his net before hanging it carefully to dry. He notices a small tear near one corner. Rather than leaving it for another day, he sits beneath a nearby tree and begins repairing it immediately. The needle moves through the cord with practiced ease. A torn net left unattended becomes a larger problem tomorrow. A repaired net brings peace of mind. The work takes only a little while. When he finishes, he folds it neatly. Tomorrow morning, before dawn, it will be ready once again. Inside one of the village homes, the midday meal is being prepared. The room is pleasantly cool compared with the bright sunlight outside. Thick mud brick walls keep much of the heat away. A woman stirs lentils slowly inside a clay pot. Nearby, fresh bread rests beneath a woven cloth to keep it soft. A child carefully washes dates in a small bowl of water. Each fruit is handled gently. The family has learned not to waste food through carelessness. Even small acts deserve attention. The smell of warm bread, herbs, and cooked lentils fills the room. It is a familiar scent. One that has welcomed countless afternoons before this one. The oldest member of the family enters slowly and settles upon a low stool near the doorway. He smiles as the smell reaches him. Some aromas carry memories more gently than words. Perhaps he remembers similar meals from his own childhood. Perhaps he remembers sitting beside his mother while bread cooled upon woven baskets just like these. Memory often arrives quietly, carried by simple things. The scent of baking grain. The warmth of a clay oven. The sound of children speaking softly nearby. Outside, life continues beneath the brilliant Egyptian sky. A scribe carefully rolls another completed sheet of papyrus. A basket maker finishes another woven lid. Children carry water jars from the river with growing confidence. Farmers inspect another row of grain. Birds circle lazily above the marshes. The Nile flows onward without pause. Hour after hour. Season after season. Century after century. Its patient waters have watched children become elders, and elders become cherished memories. Still, the river continues. Still, the fields grow. Still, bread bakes in warm ovens. Still, sandals press gently into dusty roads that generations have walked before. And beneath the quiet weight of the midday sun, another ordinary day in ancient Egypt moves forward with peaceful certainty, each familiar task blending into the next so naturally that time itself seems less like something that passes, and more like the slow, comforting rhythm of the Nile flowing endlessly toward the sea. Now the day has become quiet once more. The bright warmth of the afternoon has slowly faded into evening, and evening has gently welcomed the night. One by one, the familiar sounds of work have disappeared. The carpenter has laid down his tools. The fisherman has tied his boat beside the reeds. The farmer has walked home along the dusty path he has known since childhood. The village is resting again. Soft lamps glow behind small windows cut into mud brick walls. Their gentle light reaches only a little way into the darkness before giving itself quietly to the night. Cooking fires have become glowing embers. Clay jars stand full beside doorways. Sandals wait patiently where they were placed, ready for another familiar morning. Nothing asks to be hurried. Nothing asks to be remembered perfectly. Everything simply is. Along the Nile, the water continues its endless journey beneath the stars. The river has watched countless generations wake before dawn, carry water, knead bread, gather reeds, shape clay, plant grain, mend fishing nets, and return home beneath the evening sky. It has watched children become parents. Parents become grandparents. Grandparents become stories softly told beside quiet fires. Yet through every passing lifetime, the river has remained patient. Never rushing. Never growing weary. Only flowing. Perhaps that was the greatest secret of ordinary life in ancient Egypt. It was not a life built upon constant surprises. It was built upon gentle trust. Trust that the sun would rise again. Trust that the river would return. Trust that bread would be baked with careful hands. Trust that neighbors would greet one another upon familiar roads. Trust that another evening would arrive, bringing cool air after the day's warmth. For the people who lived beside the Nile, comfort often came not from change, but from knowing that tomorrow would carry many of the same quiet blessings as today. The same stars would shine overhead. The same birds would greet the dawn. The same fields would wait beneath the morning light. The same breeze would drip through the reeds. The same patient river would reflect another sunrise. As the village settles into peaceful sleep, the last voices become whispers. A child sighs softly before drifting deeper into dreams. A gentle breeze slips through the date palms, stirring their leaves with the lightest touch. Somewhere along the riverbank, a frog calls into the darkness. Far away, an owl glides silently across the moonlit fields. Then even those small sounds seem to fade. The earth grows still. The homes rest quietly beneath the stars. The Nile continues flowing through the darkness, calm and untroubled, carrying tomorrow toward the waiting dawn. And now, you may leave the ancient village exactly as you found it. Its narrow paths remain peaceful. Its fields rest beneath the night sky. Its people sleep safely within their homes. Its lamps burn softly. Its river flows on. There is nothing more to do. Nowhere else to walk. No more work waiting. Only the cool night air. The gentle whisper of reeds beside the water. The endless stars above. And the quiet feeling that somewhere, beyond the darkness, another calm sunrise is already finding its way toward the banks of the Nile. So let the river keep flowing without you. Let the lamp slowly fade into the night. Let the warm desert wind carry away the last waking thoughts. And, like the peaceful people of ancient Egypt after another ordinary day, simply close your eyes, rest, and drift gently into sleep.